On this episode of Building Men, Unleash Your Limitless Potential with Norman Lloyd Kinsey III. On this episode, we laugh a little, we learn a little, we cry a little, hell, we even sing a little.
Mike Tyson? This is my favorite part coming up right now. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Yeah, of course, my guy. Oh, Lord. But I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. One more time, guys. Oh, Lord.
Welcome to the Building Men podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Meralda. Hello and welcome to the Building Men podcast. My name is Dennis Meralda. The Building Men podcast is geared toward helping you become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I am honored to be joined today by a gentleman named Norman Lloyd Kinsey III, NLK3. It's like an NBA name. It's like CP3 or, MJ. It kind of has that ring to it, Norman. Thank you for being on the podcast. Norman he's an entrepreneur. He's a podcast host. He's a motivational speaker. And I was just talking to him. We just basically talked for the first time about 3 minutes ago. And I told him, I follow him up on Instagram and what he's doing on social media. And when I am watching what he's doing, it's like putting intravenous caffeine right into my system whenever I see you. So welcome aboard Building Men Podcast, Norman. Thanks for being here.
Oh, man. Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me. I really do appreciate that. And I'm glad that I could serve, support, and do something first thing in the morning and help people have that little burst of energy. Because I know a lot of times it's like alarm clock and you're trying to roll out of bed and the coffee and this and that and everything else. And so if I can give some natural way to give some people some energy, I love it, man. That's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. So I was going to start with your journey, but I'll downshift quickly and ask you about just your routine. So it's so interesting to me. There are so many people that kind of trudge along in life in this kind of monotony. And routine to some people is a negative term. When you think about routine, your life has become so routine, you kind of get stuck in this mucky kind of situation. Or you can flip the script and think of routine as something that is propelling you and positive and motivating you. So talk to us a little bit about just your routine to start with.
Yeah, I think I love that, man. I love that. I love starting there. There's two ways of looking at routines, in my opinion, right? And we all can look at this in a different term. For me, I look at routines as you have two options. You have the routines that you're doing that maybe you don't really want to do, right? So maybe if you have a job that you're not loving, or you're trying out school. So you're going to school and you're figuring out what you want to do with your life, and you're finding yourself kind of doing the things that you're doing because you feel like you have to do them, which then turns into a negative connotation because then you feel like, oh my God, I have to get up. I got to set my alarm. So if anyone out there's listening and they feel like you have to do something, I feel that the things that you feel like you have to do just means that you're on the path to get to where you're not going to feel that way. And you're going to feel more like you're on a path of doing the opposite, which is you're doing a routine that you love to do or because you want to do, right? Like for me, I'm now at a place, I am so grateful to be at this place, to wake up in the morning, without an alarm clock. So I haven't used an alarm clock for years. I tell myself when I'm gonna get up and I just get up. So that's been a super blessing. When I do get up, I'm happy and grateful to get up. And I start off the morning. The first thing that I like to do is, and everything that I do for my morning routine, it's just something that I just have developed over the years. No one's told me to do this. And there's a lot of gurus out there that'll say like, get up at 5 o'clock and do this, cold water shower, cold water plunge, hot water plunge, yada, yada, yada. I just kind of like take pieces and I'm like, how do I want to make my perfect, like, cause there's a good book called The Miracle Morning. He has some good ideas too. So I just take what I like and kind of just do my own thing. And so in the morning, first thing I do is no alarm clock. I wake up and I just think about gratitude. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my warm bed. I'm grateful for my gorgeous wife laying next to me. I'm grateful for my amazing home that I have coming up to now 1 year, owning this home after moving outside of the Bay Area here to Arizona. Grateful for my daughter, Jordan. I'm grateful for like just having another day of life, right? There's a saying out there that said, when you wake up in the morning and you just lift your head off the pillow, you have everything that you need.
Yep.
right? It's amazing. So I start with that. Then I go downstairs and the cats, I have 2 cats. I have Vincent and Julius. They just are at my feet, like, feed me, dad, feed me, dad. So I feed the cats, get them fed. And then I have salt water with lemon, and salt water and lemon is great for hydration, inflammation, all these things, digestive, and so on and so forth. So then I have my water with lemon. And then after that, I normally, I'm not really scripted on social media, or I don't really storyboard on my personal stuff. I do for Liftoff, for my business side, with the team, but it just comes to me. I'll let whatever comes to me topic wise, or something that I want to talk about. And then I'll go do an Instagram reel on the way to the gym, and I'll do a cool little, maybe Instagram reel. I'll do an IGTV, then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll start off with stretching, and then I'll work out for 45 minutes. Then I'll do my cardio for 25 minutes. And then I hit the steam room. So I get in there, I sweat it out. And then I get home, and then I wake up my daughter, and then her and I have some time together. And now my wife, because she's a teacher, Paradise Valley here in Arizona, so she's off. And so she's get to be a part of that routine, and then hang out with her, take a shower, get dressed. And then my mother-in-law comes and picks her up. And then I start the day around 8 o'clock in the morning, giving myself an hour before I need to start. So it's at 5, 6, 7, 8. So 3 hours to just kind of get started, and an hour before I actually need to start the day, total 4 hours when I actually need to have my first meeting.
Isn't it amazing when you are in charge of how you start your day, when it's not other people that are dictating what you're doing? So you didn't mention that you were checking your email. You didn't mention that you were checking on Instagram posts. You didn't mention that you were answering text messages or returning phone calls.
Nope.
Those first 3+ hours of your day, it was what you wanted to do. You were grateful. You got some physical activity in, something, you were fueling your body with something healthy, some output, and then love. It started your day with this, overwhelming feeling of love. I was going to ask you too about, just as you're doing these Instagram posts, as I'm watching them, the reels and the IGTVs, do you have an idea of what you're going to do, or you just hit play and it's like, whatever the fuck comes to your mind, this is coming out of your mouth right now?
Whatever the fuck comes on mind comes out right now.
Because you're singing, you're dancing, it's amazing. Like I said, it definitely motivates me.
I appreciate that, man. And I think the thing for me is that, like, we're evolving. And like, if you go to my Instagram, you can go back 3 years. And I used to do like the video of the day and all this like high production editing and that type of stuff. And then I recorded my whole life on YouTube, and I did that for like 2.5 years. And I have everything on there, birth of my daughter and this and that, and my old office and everything else. And it's nice now to think about it, to go back to it, but it never really took off because my intention wasn't really for it to take off. And then it put things in perspective for me, which is great. And at the end of the day, now I just want to flow and I just want to enjoy. And it's like, the whole production thing for me, it's like maybe one day when I hire someone and I take my personal brand to a whole new level. And I just did some really cool production stuff for like, I'm building a truck for the Liftoff Agent side. Yeah. So that'd be a little bit more thought through, but I love just letting it flow, man. A topic will come up and I'll just be like, let's do it. And one thing that I've observed is the trends. So Instagram Reel is really hot right now. They basically took that feature from TikTok. And the one thing that's cool is that, you can get lots of exposure to new people that you can inspire, enlighten, and serve. So the singing thing actually started, I'm not a singer at all. It just kind of came up, and then I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. So I feel like, try it. If it works, double down on it.
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned that. There was one day last week, I did like 3 or 4 interviews in one day, and I was shot out, and I'm recording everything on Zoom. I just had a little speaker next to me, and I put on music, and A Tribe Called Quest came on, and the song Stir It Up, it was like a tribute to Steve Biko comes on, and I'm writing stuff down, and I just start rapping. I'm just going with it. And then afterwards, I was like, I pulled it up, and my daughter was near me. She's like, Dad, she's like, that sounded pretty good. You should post that. I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, just do it. So I was like, fuck it. I'll throw it up there. And it's funny, got a lot of positive comments. Like, I didn't know that you had that kind of gangsta side to you right there either. And it's funny, before I got ready to come on today, I follow along with what you're doing, and you're just, this is me. You're not worried about what people think. You're like, you know what? I'm going to dye my hair purple today. I'm going to wear a bow tie, button up shirt and shorts with flips on, or doesn't matter. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw on a pink shirt with a red-headed woodpecker, just as a tribute to I'm outside of my comfort zone wearing a pink shirt. It's not my norm, but I'm like, you know what? This is going to be for NLK3.
Oh, man.
Put that up on there.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And it's so important too. I think that the number one thing is that you have to love yourself before anyone else can truly love you. Yep. And at the end of the day, it's just like, I don't know, I'm getting those kind of like good vibe feelings, right? It's just like, everything is so outward, you know, what do you have? What do you own? Who are you? How many followers you have? All these other things. And sometimes I get myself caught up looking at other influencers, and if I even want to call myself that, and I'm like, man, like what if, or I could have, and it's just like, why? Who cares? I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. And, you know, just be real, true, authentic to yourself. And I feel like if anything comes up, if anyone listening out there that you feel like you feel these thoughts, or you feel like this not so good feeling, go away from it.
Right.
Stay with what feels right and feels good. And if it makes you overanalyze or makes you think twice, then whatever it is that you're overanalyzing about or thinking about or overanalyzing about, go in the other direction. That's an automatic inward kind of like mechanism that tells you, stop. And so many people feed into it instead of going, whoa. That doesn't feel good. I'm going to go in this direction. I'm not taking that left because I don't want to, you know? So that's what I try to do personally as much as I can.
It's like once you get to the point in your life that you're making a pro and con list about whatever it is, it's you don't need to go in that direction. If there's any cons on that list and it feels inauthentic in any way, the answer is no. That's how I try to operate. The answer is no if I'm making a pro and con list about it. And
I love that.
At that point, it's what you're doing. Even if you're only inspiring one person, like having the influence and the ability to make one other person see things in a deeper way and influence their mindset, the way that they're showing up in their own life, even if it's just one person, that's amazing. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, if you're able to help one person have a better day, what a great way to put your head on the bed at the end of the night, and something to be grateful for as well.
Amen.
So
I love that.
One thing that you talked about a lot is in your reels is the idea of kind of doing things with intentionality. And it really hit home with me. It's not just like, okay, I want to do this, or I want to start a business, or I want to, you know, get a new, whatever it is. You talk about putting emotion behind whatever it is that you're intentional about. So talk to me a little bit about like your mindset in that capacity.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think right now, the biggest thing that's coming up for me, because it's the most prevalent right now, is this whole like Tacoma thing. So I have a 2021 Toyota Tacoma. I'm looking over to my left and I have my vision board, and I'm going to post, and I haven't posted this yet. I'm going to post the vision of the Tacoma that I have on my wall before having it. Right. And so when you say something like, I want this Tacoma, I want this, I want that, like it's almost giving the inclination that you don't have it. Because if you want something, then the counter of what you want is you don't have that thing that you want. So what I have been trying to do the best, and I want to stop using the word try because it's so powerful to think about also what you're saying to yourself. Yep. So mitigating try, when I think to myself what I want and take it to the next level of I already have it, and then think to myself and imagine, because when we're children, we do use our imagination. We get to be an adult, we don't really use our imagination so much because we have the debt collector and this and that and so many things going on. So it's not as easy for us to just imagine or get on the floor and play Legos and just have fun or color or whatever, which I think everyone who's watching this should just have some fun with their kids. If you have kids, if you don't, just go have some fun yourself and go play, go draw something, whatever. And so when you think about how you feel when you already have it and you say, one of my goals, GTR, I am so grateful that I have this Nissan GTR pearl white with black and red interior inside. I am so grateful for it. It's amazing. I want to go look at it right now. It's in the garage, and you start kind of putting together this imagination of what it looks like. And then you start thinking like, where's the key at? You know, and you're like looking for the key, like, oh, here's the key. And you know, it's a Toyota key, but whatever. Here's the key, you know? And then you're like, I'm going to go drive. And what I did was I actually rented one for my birthday a couple of years back and put a video out there on YouTube about the experience and having fun with it. And so many people have been talking about it for so long. I was like, oh, congratulations and yada, 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 and this. I don't have it today because I got married and have a kid and then moved out of state and all these other things. And, you know, wanted to be responsible about the decisions I make and financially the decisions I make before I buy something at that type of magnitude. And I felt like it just makes a big difference. And that's something that came up to me the last past, I think, week and a half to 2 weeks, is like thinking about not just what I want, but thinking about what I already have, even though I don't have it, and imagine already having it and how that would make me feel.
And good segue into, I was going to start, we talked before, I was going to start with asking you to pick out one point in your journey and lead us up. I'm going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to say,
I love it.
Based on that, what you just told me, take me ahead in the future. So not just what you're driving, like what does your life look like 10 years from now? Like build that life for me. What is your life going to be in 10 years? What is that going to look like?
I love that. I love that. And before I do my building, I would like anyone who's listening right now to build your own life. And whether that's piece of paper, write it down, and then think to yourself, and then talk to your spouse or talk to your partner or talk to your friends or family, or whoever you have about this amazing experience, like really think about that. So for me, I'm at a place right now where I'm now in Arizona. It's a great place to live. I'm loving it so far, and I want to get to the next place. So my wife and I are thinking about having a son. So that's looking at, expanding the family. We're also thinking about looking at living on the water. And there's a place called Val Vista in Arizona. Believe it or not, you can live on the water. So I'm looking at potentially living on the water in Val Vista, which would be really cool. But then there's like that kind of, well, do you want to live on the water, or do you want to just buy land somewhere and get really creative and just dig out your own your own type water, whatever it is, a moat around your house or whatever, and then have like your own thing. So for me, I've always had this idea of having, say, on a personal side, having a land, building my own custom house, having a garage underneath that. I've always wanted a monster truck. So I want to have a monster truck in my backyard. Even having a roller coaster is pretty extra, but I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Why not?
Having a man-made little lake so you can do jet skiing, boating, whatever you want. You can have, RC car track. You could do your go-karting, and then you could do your dirt biking, and really have a place where it's just like you go in your master bedroom, you have a slide that slides down to your pool. You have a helicopter pad. You have different like places to go where it's like, okay, well, the weather's not so great here, so I want to go somewhere else. So my wife and I have already talked about the 5 places we want to own homes, in places where it's either tropical or the desert or, the forest, and in places where you can go and then have different destination locations. So right now I'm kind of 50-50 at crossroads. Where do I get the land myself, build the house, and go that route on my own? Or do I get like the Villa Vista type place where it's already on the water, I already have that, still buy land? But then I was talking to Austin Lenny, who connected you and I, to potentially have a place where you can have like a destination kind of like place where you can have an off the grid location where everything's off the grid. So you literally can go, there's bungalows, a whole nine, you can do archery, you can do shooting, you can do off-roading, fun, cool, awesome place. And to bring it full circle on the business side, I see Liftoff Agent being the #1 marketing positioning agency, setting the industry standard in regards for the real estate sector. So helping agents get more focused on putting together a business plan and putting together a plan to think about their business bigger. So that way they have SOPs and KPIs, and they're focusing on those standard operating procedures and those key performance indicators and income producing activities, where when we set the industry standard, when someone gets their license or someone's thinking marketing and positioning, it's Liftoff Agent, right? And then I'm already building my team in the Philippines, and I want to have Liftoff Agent International. So the Philippines team is going to build this company there. We're also going to have it here in the States. And as soon as that foundation's built, and then of course I'm going to buy other rental properties. I want to have rental properties. I want to have Airbnbs. I want to be able to have all these different opportunities to share with my friends, share with my family, also income producing activities with it. Then I can be able to then go into the next segment of my life, which is wanting to do like motivational speaking, go to schools, give back, and really just allude to the limitless possibilities of how your life could look and how it could be, and how you could literally just, create anything, because everything around us that we all subject to, we all agree that's here, was created by our forefathers, and we just accept what is, instead of understanding that we actually can create anything that we want to create. It's just a matter of limitations based off of financial limitations or family limitations or self-limiting beliefs and all these things. So I want to get to a level where my life is so extra that it's almost like you're living your dream, but then to be able to inspire someone to bring them into your life and have kind of like a day in the life, come with me. I definitely want to have a G6. I can fly around to my different properties and stuff, and then share that with someone, like, and really show that possibility. Like you think that where you're at, you can't get where I'm at, you can, and like turn it into something more. And then anything that I do on my personal social media, if I come out with courses or anything, it will be free. Like all my content will always be free, and I'll just give it back and support people. And just because I built a foundation with Liftoff financially, I have the wealth and abundance I need, $100 million plus company, to be able to do all this stuff on the personal side to bring it together full circle.
And it wasn't a question I thought about asking, but the fact that you can paint a picture of every single, it was almost like a feeling that you had. I feel like I just paid admission to go on that ride with you right there. It was like a
appreciate
Disney
that.
ride that I just went on. And I mean, I think you have to go in the direction of having a moat. Because how many people in the world can say that they have a moat around their house? I mean, that's just my humble opinion. You got to go for the moat.
You know, it'd be really sick. So you have the moat around the house, right? And then you have to drive underneath the house to the underneath garage. So what if the underneath garage was all glass and you got to see through the glass and see the water and see the fish, and you make your underwater aquarium with your cars and your supercars and trucks and everything else underneath the house?
Yeah, it has to happen. There needs to be, just for protection, like a shark with a laser beam on its hat or something like that, just for protection for you and your family. So now we're there. So that's 10 years in the future. So now bring us back into your past. So I'm really curious whenever I talk to someone, there's always that spot along their journey where it could be a difficult situation in school. It could be, post high school or college, where you're having this moment where you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, like, I'm not quite sure I believe in myself, or something happened. So was there a spot in your background, whatever it was, it could be school, it could be college, it could be post, it could be in your entrepreneurial career, where you were just like, I don't know if I could do this right now? If there was, like, let us know a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I think mine was, I've always had confidence, but I had to shift my confidence from confidence being cocky and arrogant to confidence to being like loving, caring, and humble. So that's one thing that's happened on that level. So I've never really had too many like self-limiting beliefs that I told myself I couldn't do something. I got to a point where on the business side, what happened for me is I basically, like, I was selling cars for 3.5 years, and I told the general manager to F off and quit my job on the spot because he was an asshole, excuse my language. And I was never seen as an asset, and I wanted to do something for myself. And so I remember at a point in my life was banging my head against the wall because I knew that I could offer service to someone and maybe an industry. I just didn't know what it was going to be. I knew that the things that I was doing was okay, but it was so much of my own personal efforts, and I wanted to duplicate my efforts, and I wanted to do something more than just, like, at that time I was doing like security work, and that was on the weekends, and I was doing personal assistant stuff, and I was selling stuff online and just trying to figure it all out. And I was banging my head against the wall, and I was like reaching out to people on Craigslist, trying to just offer whatever I could. And then the moment was when I went and I was like doing some research, looking at different industries, and I found J Rockcliff Realtors in Alamo, California, about 30 minutes outside of San Francisco, California, where I was basically born and raised. And yeah, I found J Rockcliff, and it was like the holy grail. I was like, there is over 350, 400 contacts. I have names, I have email addresses, I have phone numbers. I was like, I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have a business degree. I don't know how to reach out to these people. I don't know what I could do. And I was like, I love social media, and I post on social media, and these agents aren't doing stuff with social media. Right. Is there something here? And that's when it all started, calling 350 agents to craft a specific solution that I came up with Liftoff, to give myself an opportunity to serve a community or serve someone in a community. And so the first client found me on Craigslist. I started running some ads. I met this guy, my partner, on Craigslist, and he was going to help me with a project. I had a random story. I had the ambassador of Libyan coming out, and it was a friend of mine. She was working at a Patelco bank, and her general manager had this contact, and I got this job. I would do odd jobs, and I needed to find a graphic design guy. Found the graphic design guy on Craigslist, the cheapest, best looking. Found our first client off Craigslist. So thank God at Craigslist. It's completely changed now. It's not as good as it used to be. And client came to my master bedroom. I had a bed in there and 2 little desks. I gave her the whole presentation. She signed up, our very first client. She's still our client today. She will retire with us. And then my partner, Smith Chung, who I met on Craigslist, is still my partner to this day. And he's the yin to my yang, as I'm the front end guy who's like the extra dude closing the business. And then he's behind the scenes developing and getting everything set up to this day. So that was my aha moment on more of like the business side, that I think that really was like, okay, this is the direction we're going to go into.
Isn't it amazing? And those are the times that really stick out to me along my journey, when you feel like things are not going the way that you thought they would, or that you're kind of in that, not woe is me moment, but you're kind of doubting yourself. All you need is that one other person that sees something in you, that believes in you, and kind of will take a risk or
Yes.
gamble on you. And those are the moments that you never forget in your life. And Austin says it too. And we talked about this a couple times, Austin and I, and he said what he does is he kind of like lets you borrow that belief in yourself. He has it in you. He let you borrow it for a while until you can build up enough of that belief in yourself and you could just kind of take it on and run with it.
I love that. That's super huge. That's great.
It is. And so now I'm interested in where that comes from. So obviously you're not lacking in confidence. I think back whenever I interview someone, I think about, as a former principal, I try to, think about what you would be like in my school, like how that person that I'm talking to would show up in my school. And I believe that you would have been part of the Building Men program as I ran it in schools. Like, I feel like you would have been part of what we were doing in more of a leadership capacity. I see you kind of in a school, kind of, at the, kind of a wise ass a little bit. I could absolutely see you being a wise ass a little bit, but also being a leader in whatever capacity you ran in. So I often wonder about how people's experiences were in school and how that either prepared them for what they're doing now or failed to prepare them for what they're doing now in their life. So how would you say you would categorize your experience in school? Do you feel like you had an experience that prepared you for the role that you're living now as an entrepreneur, as a podcast host, as a business owner, as a motivational speaker? Or do you feel like it failed you in what you wish you could have gotten from school?
Yeah, I think that, there's a couple parts with that. So I feel like school was an eye-opening experience for me, mainly because of what I had going on. And I think for me, I was diagnosed with a learning disability back in third grade. I had tubes in my ears, and my parents, more my mom, because my dad wasn't really in my life and I don't really have a big father figure. Hence, I know what your mission statement is and what you guys are doing at Building Men's podcast. And so for me, I had the tubes in my ears. I was reading lips. So before I had the tubes in, I was reading lips and I couldn't hear anything. Got the tubes in. It was like a aha moment. I was like, oh my God, I can hear. This is amazing. Back in third grade. So they held me back. They put me in special education, not just for reading and writing, but for all subject matters. So, okay, history, science, this, that, and other thing. And so what school did for me is it kind of helped me build character, be a chameleon, but then I also got additional support and help because I was diagnosed with a learning disability and because I was put in special education and I was in those classes with people that had autism and in wheelchairs and whatnot. It made me have to think to myself, like, do I really care that what other people think about? Because at first I would wait for like the bell to ring and everyone would go in, and then I would then go in after, so they didn't know what class I was in. And I never really wanted to talk about that because I didn't feel that proud of being in those classes. But what it taught me over time is that if you're going to school and you're just in a normal class and you're kind of going through the process, you're kind of just going through a groove and you're kind of going through something that's been set up and it's on a mass scale. But when you're in special education, you get special support and special help. Yep. So then I got more help for reading lips. Now, how do I pronounce words and how do I read and this and that? So school taught me, like, I remember in third grade, I would come home crying and I was so upset and people would make fun of me and people would tease me. And this is at the time where, they needed to find out what was wrong, the tubes that needed to happen. I couldn't read the book when I got called out and people like pulled on my pants and I would just get made fun of and this and that. So it built my character really quick because I was a loner and I didn't have a lot of friends. And then it made me feel like, I don't care what anyone has to think about me. I mean, I was in special ed all the way until high school until I got out of special ed and got into more resource. And then completely, I think I was out by the time I graduated. But it served me in a way where I got the special help that I needed. And then I knew ever since I was probably in middle school that I wanted to be a business owner, but I wanted to be a business owner for I went to school for ASE and Smog and built a 1972 Chevelle Malibu with my dad in high school. So I was going to be a mechanic. And I sold cars for 3.5 years going into that direction. I was going to school and then I got recruited after buying a car to sell cars because of personality and the guy saw something in me. And so school really built up my character about, hey, it doesn't matter what anyone else has to think. Now I got extra help that I needed. And it gave me kind of like the stepping stones to be able to like get out of special ed and resource and then get to that place where I can then graduate and, have great, grades. And at the end of the day, when I got to high school, I was kind of just like getting it done. I was like, all right, I just got to get this done. I got my first job in maintenance work at 13. And I was just like, what's this money thing about? Yeah. So that was my experience with school.
And well, one, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know
Of
that's, you
course.
never know how people are going to react when you ask them to share, something about their past. And that might have been something, it definitely helped you become who you are today.
Yes.
Especially there might have been times you mentioned the word chameleon that you kind of just felt like you didn't want people to look at you or to see you. I interviewed a gentleman, his name was Craig Cooper, and he does a podcast called Walking Purpose. And he shared a personal story about his experience in special education in such a negative way that the teacher basically called him a retard in front of the class. And
Wow.
it was one of those things that it set him on this really negative journey for a long point of his life, that he
Wow.
just has recently come to terms with the depression, that he went on this depressive journey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing that I hear is you did have some negative experiences in school, and I look at one of the reasons I got into education was I went through a really difficult situation with bullying as a middle school student, and I always looked at the adults thinking, why can't anyone see this? Why can't anyone observe what's going on? I'm like, I don't want to be here. I want to shrink and hide. I want to run away. I can't bear getting up and going to school every day, and no one sees what's going on. I never told anyone. I was always embarrassed to share that with anyone, because I felt like, oh, you stick up for yourself and go kick his ass or whatever. But I was dealing with kids that were older than me that I was afraid of. And I always thought, why can't someone see what I'm going through? But I never had the confidence to talk to someone about it. So it's a soft spot in my heart, anyone who's experienced a difficult spot in school at any point. So for you to say that you look back on it in a fond way, that it taught you these really important life lessons about resiliency and kind of not worrying about what the crowd said and who other people think you should be. I went the opposite way in my journey, Norman. I was like, I'm going to try to fit in even more. So I don't want to make waves. I don't want people to see me in any way of a different way. So I spent a lot of my life kind of living a way that I thought other people should live, where you were like, you know what, fuck it. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. So it's one of those things, my heart breaks for you that you went through it, but I'm so happy because you're sitting, in front of me today, probably 3,000 miles away, but in a way that those experiences help you become this unbelievably motivational human being that you're helping other people. So I'm sad, but also happy that you had that positive experience from a negative experience.
No, I really do appreciate that. And I mean, it's however you want to look at it, right? And I think that there's no right or wrong. I feel like everyone needs to go through what they're going to go through to be where they need to go. And I feel that everything is for that reason. So, you wouldn't be where you're at if you didn't go through what you went through in that negative sense, as if I went through what I went through and I saw it in a positive sense. And I think that if anything, I just, knew I needed to get school done. And it's so easy to get caught up in the, oh, why me? Like, why am I in this type of class for? And why am I being picked on? And try to ask all these inner questions. But the one thing that I have to say that's very interesting, it's almost like it's like a subconscious thing where people know there's something about like you and I or anyone listening, if you've been teased and this has come up for you, they almost know there's something special and they want to get it out of you, but they don't know they're trying to get it out of you because they're just teasing you or they're saying or they're doing whatever they're doing. But lo and behold, there's actually greatness within you, within myself, within the listeners that went through this, that had no idea, that took whatever amount of time it took to finally let it shine. And for them to be like, oh my God. And then inevitably enough, it turns into a positive, right? Like, oh, this was a negative thing for me, but now where I'm at in my life, because they say that each day you evolve. And so what you look at something today, you might change the way that you looked at it yesterday because you evolved a little bit that next day with whoever you met or whatever the case may be. So eventually, from what I've seen is if it's still a negative thing for you, you're still going through it. And if you've already gone through it, then it's probably turning into a positive thing that you can look back and say like, man, I'm so grateful for that experience.
And think about this too, as human beings, we crave connectivity, we crave relationships. So put yourself back into a situation where you're third, fourth, fifth grade, whatever, through high school. And a lot of times when we're going through experiences, especially challenging experiences, we're looking for someone that we can identify with that has gone through a similar experience. And unfortunately, in my experience in school, I was in education for 20 years as a principal for almost 14 years. There's not enough out there where we're identifying positive role models, especially for special education students. You bring in motivational speakers, you bring in the guys that are juggling, the guys that can do some kind of acrobatic kind of thing with basketballs and whatever.
Yep.
But no one, I would say no one that I've experienced had the courage to say, listen, I was in a resource room setting from the time I was in third grade through high school. I was in a small class. I had tubes in my ears. I had to read lips. I wasn't able to function the same way, but I had people that cared about me. I was able to take that challenging situation and use it as a positive to motivate me. So when you talked in the beginning about trying to find a space to do motivational speeches within schools, you will absolutely find a success on a really high level because of your level of authenticity, of transparency, where you're like, listen, I have gone through this. I see what you're going through, and here's what you can do to help it motivate you for the future. 100%. I'm so happy that you shared that story because listen, I'm going to be on the lookout for opportunities for you to connect with people because it's such a story that is needed for kids, especially they're going through something challenging. They don't have enough people that they can look to and say, listen, he did it. I know I can do it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just have a clear understanding that like, hey, and the people that want to receive it and need to receive it will receive it. And those that don't or need more time to go through their things, that's totally fine. And I love that, man. And I feel and believe everything happens for a reason. So us meeting, us talking, your background, the school thing, like, my wife, she hooked me up and I went and spoke at her classroom setting in Hayward, California. In Hayward, California, if you know, like Oakland, California, the kids, Section 8, lower income, their mindset, it wasn't the easiest experience. I'll tell you that much. And talk about like receiving, some were receiving, some weren't. And then you tried to relate and then you dropped like names and then, everyone has their opinion and then it turns into a big ha, 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 laugh, laugh, laugh. So it's interesting, right? I think that what I'm learning is like the, also just a psychology when I get into that realm of doing that, like what level, what grade, when will they be more receptive, not receptive, or it just be kind of like a fun haha thing or an actual like, hey, like this is something I want to think about.
So when you're doing any type of those motivational speeches, I mean, my advice is always, I've worked in that space for a while. Instead of looking at it as a larger group, like what you're trying to do is have an individual conversation with every single person in the room. It's almost like, it's like taking it from the sociology down to the individual psychology of trying to connect with each person. I'll be there. There's a podcast by the time that this airs, it will have been in the past, but it will be with a gentleman named Michael Fallon. He's a doctor of psychology from Rutgers University, and he's a motivational speaker. And he does presentations. And I met him as a principal, and I hired him to come in and work with my students. And what he does is he gets into different characters, and he weaves you on this journey, becoming different characters, and you connect. Kids are connecting with those characters on a level where they're like, wow, this, like, he tells a story about a kid who is this badass big dude. He's a running back at Rutgers, and he's telling this whole story. And by the end of it, he's like, and I'm gay. And people are like, what? And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, that kid can't be gay because he's a fucking running back at Rutgers. And all of a sudden his journey. But what he told me was, you need to think about it. You're a psychologist or a therapist. You're talking to every single kid in that room one-on-one. And once you think about it in that way, people are craving that connection. You're able to connect. It doesn't matter if you're a white guy talking to a black audience, a black guy talking to a white audience, or anywhere in between. There's a way to do that if you're talking to every single person like we're talking today. Different way to think about it.
I appreciate that. Definitely noted for sure for the future. I love that. I'll definitely think about that when the opportunity presents itself and I have that opportunity to be able to take that approach. Wow. I like that.
And just to kind of cycle back a little bit, you talked about your experience kind of growing up and, your conversations with your mother. And you said that your father wasn't, a role model in your life or wasn't present in your life at the time. So I'm always interested in how you develop a sense of masculinity. How do you develop this idea of how you want to be as a man, how you want to show up as a man, as a husband, as a father in the future? What were some certain lessons that you learned throughout your time growing up that helped you become the best dad, the best husband that you can be?
I think the number one, if I would just say like a word, it would be, or a couple words, be present. I think being present makes such a big difference. I feel like we all get so caught up with things that we have to do or places we need to go to, and that we want to set our kids up for success, but then we don't listen to what the kid or child has to say intently, validate where they're coming from, and then just be present when it's a situation where, oh, look at this flower, or look at this, or look at that, or whatever else. Because growing up for me, I dealt with, and I didn't know I was dealing with this until I got older, and I say it like that because, I was the one that told my mom at 3 years old, it's time for me to go to bed. I was the one that was brought up by my grandparents because my mom would go out all night and she'd be doing whatever she was doing. And then she would sleep all day. And my grandmother needed to take care of me because she had me in her 20s. And my father was working on cars and smoking dope and doing whatever he was doing. And they ended up having a falling out. And my mom was one that was very subject to just kind of being led into different directions, and then ended up getting married to a guy that she had my brother with that unfortunately, and one day we'll reconnect. He's out in my life because he's going through some things, and his father didn't like me and didn't understand why she loved me unconditionally. So, when you're having children and you're going through a process of having children and you're not quite ready, which who's ever really ready? But I will say the older you get, and the more you've been around children and you're ready for them, or you at least make the decision to have the child, makes a big difference from being a child and you're just in the moment and then you just have the child. And then guess what? The child's subject to learning and growing with you as you're learning and you're growing. And then not until you get to a different stage in life, you have maybe a deeper connection, depending on if it does get deeper or not. And that's kind of where I was. So I had to be the person who was very observant and had to observe and see what was going on and take care of my little brother, because no one was there for him to be taken care of. I was the one that, organized and cleaned things, because my mom was with a guy that used to go into homes that were rehab homes and had no hot water. And we lived out of trash bags and the whole nine, and learn these things at such a young age that put things in perspective, which was one of my motivational factors of like, I don't want that. Yep. I'm not going to, and so now being a father, masculinity and the whole nine, I think just being a parent in general, and it's something that I'm still working on, is like being present, being available, and working to do things that will serve your child, and finding out what your child needs to then be able to serve, support, help them. And I was raised by women, so I have more of like a female kind of tendencies, where I got my nails painted for my birthday and my hair color is always different. And now I'm wearing short shorts and my wife likes it. So that's cool. And I'm kind of liking it. So you know what I'm saying? So I really just don't care. And, I know that for some, masculinity could be, maybe something else, whether it's like, you need to have big muscles or a deep voice or certain things that are characteristics that make someone else feel that that's what's there for them. For me, I feel like, just from my child's standpoint and being a father, is showing up, being there, listening, understand, validating. And from a masculinity standpoint, as a man, just being true to myself and not feeling like I'm too manly to paint my nails, or too manly to dye my hair, or too manly to dye my fingers. Cause then you're looking at what the status quo is and looking and feeding into what everyone else believes, what everyone else thinks, when it's just like, why not lead by example and do what maybe feels good to you, instead of needing to feel like, hey, this doesn't feel good to someone else, which you don't know how it feels to them, besides what the masses say is right and wrong. And then that's kind of the direction you go into. So,
and on this journey of building men, so I'm almost a year into this podcast. One of the reasons I started was to try to really figure out what masculinity is. And, I had my preconceived notions about what I believed it was a year ago now. And my opinion on it has changed. My definition of it has changed over the last year. And a lot of it is through self-discovery, learning as much as I can and having conversations with people. But if you look at the definition, it's masculinity is traits associated with maleness or being a man. And what is that? What does that even mean? And everyone has their own definition of masculinity. You hear masculinity thrown out now as a punchline. People are saying there's toxic masculinity, there's divine masculinity, authentic masculinity. What does it all mean? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And your definition is going to help me define it over the course of this project, this Building Men podcast that I'm doing right now. And what I love that you said was, you're not basing masculinity on the masses. You're not basing it on what you think other people think you should be doing. It's based on what comes authentic to you. And that's part of this experience that we've had together over the last hour or so, is that, you've gone through some difficult times in your life. You have, you just mentioned your experience at home, without that really positive male role model in your life, where you had to take on a father figure role to your younger brother, which I understand that. I have a brother who's 14 years younger than me. And so I was, in college coaching his baseball team, and I had a big part. He's my younger brother, but I was like a father/brother to him growing up. So I understand that role where you're like, you want to be going out and doing all this stupid shit that kids are doing at the age, but you also have this responsibility to a younger sibling that you need to be there for. And then your experience in school. So you were able to take all of that, negative, and you made it into something that was a positive for you, that you're like, I am me. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'll dye my hair purple. I'll wear fucking tight shorts and let the people look, because I got nothing to worry about here. Those red shorts that you had on the Instagram post, they were. Hopefully, I'm going to repost that picture. So that's what we're talking about too.
They're pretty short, and it's funny because my mother-in-law, she said something that was like, I think ties into this perfectly. She's all, man, you really like. I don't know if she would use the word masculinity, but she's like, you are like a true man to paint your toenails blue and not even like, so for her definition was like, hey, like if you're a true man, then you're not worried about what people think about your painted toenails. And don't get me wrong, in the back of my subconscious, I would walk places or go into places, and with the short shorts and I'm wearing freaking flip-flops with blue painted nails, you know what I'm saying? I would automatically, because I'm in Arizona and this state, you got a lot of, people out here that are, gun toting, cowboys and this and that. And like, that may or may not be accepted. So that does come up for me, but I'm not feeding into that, because wherever energy goes, energy flows. And do I want to feed into that type of negative energy where if they said something to me, even my wife said something, she said, I'm really surprised no one said anything, because if they would say something, I think she said something about like, this is my man, or, something to kind of like mitigate what that comment was, and to say like, hey, like, he's married to me. So, it's funny how that comes up for other people too, and what they think about that type of stuff. So,
and once you get to that point in your life where your other people's opinions of you, that is on them. That's their shit. That has nothing to do with you. As long as you know that you're showing up in an authentic way, you're doing what you need to be doing, and you could look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, like you were talking about before, you have that, you're okay. Everything, you're going on that right path. So I'm so interested. Naming an episode of the podcast it's a special thing for me. It's like a kind of a ritualistic thing. I jot down words as we go through. And so a couple of the words are things that I jotted down were, obviously was being present. That's something that I heard from you. You rewrote a script in your life that other people would have had that script and they would have gone in one direction. So you had a script that was there that you're like, I'm gonna turn this into this hero's journey that you took a positive from. And the last thing that I wrote down was limitless potential, because I believe that you believe that, and it's contagious. Your belief in the potential that not only you have, but that you can then help other people in this ripple effect way. So those are going to be some words that I'm going to try to massage together to name this episode. And so the last, question that I would have for you would be, as you kind of walked me through this journey of your life, and we started off kind of moving into the future and then working our way back. So we kind of did like a backwards design in the last hour or so. If you had an opportunity to go back and talk to yourself, so now you're a high school student who just went through this, you had a tougher upbringing with like not having that positive male role model in your life, with school that maybe taught you some lessons, but it wasn't the greatest experience. So if you were to go back and give yourself a piece of advice when you're 15, 16 years old about the future, what would you tell yourself?
I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to say, keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward, keep going through it, because I believe everything that happened for a reason. And that's why I am who I am today.
It's kind of like Dory said to Nemo, just keep swimming. Right?
I love it.
All right. So Norman, where can people that are listening to the Building Men podcast find you, reach out to you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, just you can look up NLK3III on say Google, and you'll find me pretty much everywhere. So Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm the most probably active on definitely Instagram, but I have everything, so you can check them out everywhere. And then Norman Lloyd Kinsey III, all spelled out. You can spell that out also in Google, and you can find me on my YouTube channel and like see the truck that I just got done and some of the life things that I've done, marrying my wife, the birth of my daughter. I'm very transparent. You can check it out. You can reach out to me, send me a DM, ask me any questions, do the best I can to serve, support, and help anyone that reaches out.
Awesome. Yeah, it was so good to talk to you today. Like I said, this is the first time we really ever had an opportunity to connect, and I feel like I know you already. So I'm looking forward to meeting you in person one day and getting a ride in that truck.
Hey, let's make it happen, bro. I appreciate you, dude. So have an amazing day today. And thanks so much for having me on the show. It was absolutely, absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. I took some stuff away for myself as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone listening. Go a step further than you thought you could go today. We'll see you next time on Building Men.